My sister vanished on the morning of her wedding, and before anyone could stop it, the crown decided I would replace her. By nightfall, I was dressed as a bride, walking toward a man feared across the realm, a duke known for his silence, his power, and the single blind eye that missed nothing. I told myself I could survive one ceremony, one lie, one night, but the moment he stood beside me, steady and unreadable, I understood something was already wrong, because men like him do not marry without knowing exactly who they are claiming. Don't forget to subscribe to Sweet Serenity DL. The first lie I ever told that had the power to destroy a kingdom slipped from my lips before I even had time to regret it. I will take her place. Those 5 words changed the course of my life. People often imagine that the beginning of a scandal comes with lightning, shouting, or some dramatic crash that echoes through the corridors. But when my sister vanished on the morning of her wedding, the world did not collapse, no glass shattered, no one screamed. There was only silence, thick, suffocating silence as my mother stared at the empty bed, the open window, and the ribbon she had dropped carelessly on the floor. Liana had always been reckless, beautiful, stubborn, brilliant in her own chaotic way. But even for her, running away hours before being bound to Duke Alistair Thorne, the Iron Falcon of the North, was unthinkable. And yet, she was gone. My mother trembled so violently that she had to grip the bedpost to stay upright. My father paced like a man who had already seen the noose tightening around his neck. Our house had only just recovered from years of political missteps. Losing this alliance would ruin us permanently. It was strange, standing there and watching them fall apart. I, Adrian Hale, the quieter sibling, the one everyone assumed was too gentle to handle pressure, felt oddly steady. My heart thudded, yes, my stomach twisted. But beneath all that, a cool certainty settled deep inside me. We cannot cancel the wedding, my father muttered. We cannot insult him. The Duke is not a man one crosses. He will kill us, my mother whispered. And that was when the lie formed in my mind. Clean, sharp, inevitable. I stepped forward. The air in the room shifted as both of them looked at me. I'll take her place, I said, calmly, clearly. It wasn't bravery. It wasn't desperation. It was simply the only solution left. My mother blinked, stunned. Adrian, you're her brother, 6 feet tall. Yes, I replied, voice steady, but close enough in build. And with the veil, the gown, the hair. No one will look too closely. They won't dare. The Duke might. My father's voice broke. He's half blind, but not foolish. I didn't flinch. I'll be careful. Inside me, intelligence battled instinct. I weighed the risks, calculated the lies I would need to tell, the posture I would need to mimic, the tone of voice Liana used when she wanted something. I knew my sister better than anyone. I could copy her confidence, her arrogance, her charm. This will save us, I said simply. My parents exchanged a helpless glance, and that was all the permission I needed. Within an hour, I was stripped, watched, and surrounded by frantic maids who whispered prayers under their breath as they bound my chest, tainted my face, and lowered a heavy silk gown over my head. The fabric smelled like lavender and fear. My hair, normally tied back in a simple low knot, was arranged into cascading curls that brushed my shoulders. Liana's jewelry weighed down my neck and ears. When they finally placed the bridal veil over my head, the world blurred into a soft haze of light and shadows. One of the maids stepped back and pressed a trembling hand over her mouth. You look, she swallowed. I did not tell her that my heart felt like a fist closing around itself. I did not tell her that the man waiting for me at the altar was rumored to bend steel with his bare hands. I did not tell her that if Duke Alistair realized the truth, I would not live long enough to regret it. My father approached, dressed formally, but his face was ashen. Adrian, I never wanted. I know. I interrupted gently, but this is necessary. He stared at me, as if seeing me for the first time. You're calm. I have to be. He nodded once, like a man accepting his fate. He offered his arm, and I took it, stepping into the corridor. Every step felt like the beginning of a story, had no control over. Every breath tasted like the edge of a blade. The chapel doors opened slowly, revealing rows of nobles turning to watch the bride watch me walk down the aisle. And at the far end stood Duke Alistair Thorne. He was taller than I expected, broad-shouldered, with scars cutting across his skin like someone had carved stories into him. His eyes were covered with a strip of dark cloth, rumored to hide the damage inflicted during war. Some said he saw shapes, some said he saw nothing. But everyone agreed on one thing. Alistair Thorne missed nothing. He stood perfectly still, but something about his bearing, something about the quiet intensity that radiated from him made the hairs along my neck rise. My heartbeat quickened. Keep your head lowered. Keep your voice soft. Do not overplay it. Do not break character. As my father guided me forward, a chilling thought drifted through me. He can't see me clearly, but he can sense me. And if he senses I'm not his bride, I am dead. We reached the altar. My father stepped away. The Duke extended his hand. His palm was warm when mine touched it. Warm and steady. Steady enough to make my breath catch. His voice was low, deep, rich, and far too perceptive. You're trembling, he murmured. Are you afraid of marrying me? The question hit me like a blade, but I managed a soft laugh, imitating Lyanna's tone. Only a little. You look exactly like Lady Lyanna. A pause. A subtle tilt of his head, as though he recognized the sound but couldn't decide what felt off about it. The ceremony began. Vows were spoken. Rings exchanged. My pulse raced so wildly I thought it might shatter through my chest. When the priest announced us bound, Alistair turned toward me slightly, his face close enough for me to see the faint scar across his lower lip. He whispered, "Your voice sounds different today." My blood froze. I forced a smile behind the veil. "It's nerves," I whispered. He hummed softly to softly, suspiciously, and then he offered his arm, guiding me toward the hall where the feast waited. As we stepped into the doorway, he leaned down, his breath brushing my ear. "You wear her perfume, but your heartbeat is not hers." I nearly faltered. He couldn't know. He couldn't. Not this soon. But his grip tightened ever so slightly, and in that moment, I understood something horrifying. Duke Alistair Thorne may not see faces, but he sees truth. And Adrian Hale, pretending to be his bride, had just walked into the arms of a man who could ruin me with a whisper. The moment the doors to the banquet hall closed behind us, I felt as if I had stepped into a world that did not belong to me, a world that demanded pose, deception, and flawless composure all at once, and I could not afford even a single mistake. The hall was vast, glittering with gold chandeliers and filled with nobles whose eyes followed every movement I made. Yet the only gaze I truly felt was the one hidden behind the Duke's blindfold, a presence so sharp it might as well have been sight itself. His arm was firm beneath my hand, guiding me forward with an ease that made me question every rumor I had ever heard about his limited vision. Because there was nothing hesitant about the way he moved, nothing unsure, nothing cautious, only the calculated confidence of a man who had mastered the world even without its colors. I kept my steps measured, graceful, mimicking Lyanna's gait from memory, absorbing every detail of her posture, her practiced elegance, the slight lift of her chin whenever she wanted to hide something. The gown's weight dragged at my shoulders, the veil blurred the periphery of my sight, and the murmurs around us pooled into an indistinct hum, but my focus stayed locked on the man beside me. Every time he shifted, even slightly, I caught the subtle tightening of his jaw, the way his head angled as if he were listening to something the rest of the room was too loud to notice. I could not tell what he sensed, only that he sensed something, and that truth pressed against my ribs like a warning. When we reached the high table, he released my arm but did not step away entirely. Instead, he remained close enough that the warmth of his presence brushed against me like a second cloak, making my pulse stumble against my ribs. A servant pulled up my chair, and I sat with a composed smile, careful to lower myself the way Lyanna always did, slow, elegant, as if the whole room belonged to her. The Duke took his seat beside mine with a quiet authority that silenced the nearby conversations instantly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He rested one hand lightly on the table, fingers tapping once before going still. Then, without turning his head, he said softly, "Your heartbeat has steadied." It was not a question, yet something in me reacted anyway. "The ceremony is over," I murmured, keeping my voice close to Lyanna's pitch but not forcing it. "The nerves have faded." The sound was thoughtful, almost amused, but not quite. "Or perhaps you are simply becoming a better liar." My breath caught, but I forced the tension from my shoulders. "You think I would lie on our wedding day?" "I think everyone lies," he replied calmly, lifting his goblet, "especially today." The hall erupted in polite laughter and music as the first course was brought out, masking the quiet storm gathering between us. I tasted nothing of the food placed before me. My mind ran through possibilities, like an efficient machine. Was he testing me, teasing me, or did he truly suspect something? His voice revealed nothing but an unsettling curiosity, a curiosity sharpened by the faint smile that tugged at the corner of his mouth. "You speak less boldly than usual," he said, after a moment, tilting his head slightly in my direction. Not that I mind. It is interesting. My pulse skipped, but I didn't falter. Weddings tend to tame even the boldest tongues. Perhaps, he murmured, or perhaps you are afraid of saying something I will question. The words slid under my skin, cool and deliberate. But I lifted my chin slightly, channeling Liana's ease. If you have questions, you may ask them, I said softly. I would never refuse my husband. A low chuckle escaped him, not mocking, but surprised. He leaned closer, just enough for his breath to brush my ear. You choose your words very carefully today, and you observe too carefully, I whispered back. The pause that followed stretched like a taut string between us. Then he said, It is my habit to observe. It has kept me alive. There was no threat in his tone. Only truth, quiet, heavy truth that settled between us like a shadow. The rumors of the Iron Falcon's instincts were not exaggerated. If anything, they had failed to capture the full danger of his awareness. The feast continued around us, but for me, it felt like the entire room faded into a distant blur, leaving only the Duke's steady, unreadable presence, the tightening coil of secrecy in my chest, and the quiet calculations unfolding behind my calm expression. I knew I could not break, not today, not ever, if I wanted to live long enough to find another path. When dessert arrived, he set down his goblet and spoke without turning toward me. Tomorrow morning, we will begin the journey to my estate in the north. I had prepared for this answer, but hearing it aloud tightened something in my stomach. Of course, I replied smoothly. I knew I would be leaving home. Yet you do not seem saddened. I prefer to carry my emotions privately. He hummed again, a contemplative, probing sound. A convenient habit for someone who wishes to hide. My fingers curled under the table, but my face remained composed. You think I hide too much? I think, he said slowly, that there is something about you that does not match what I expected. He paused long enough that I felt my breath lodge in my throat. But I cannot decide whether that is a flaw, or something far more intriguing. The word intriguing brushed against me unexpectedly, sending a flicker of heat through my chest. I forced my voice steady. If I fail to meet your expectations, I will do better. You misunderstand. He finally turned his head toward me, blindfold facing my direction, and though he could not see my face, I felt cornered by the focus of his attention. I do not dislike what I sense, I simply do not recognize it. I swallowed gently, careful not to disrupt the veil. Then perhaps you will. With time. A subtle smile tugged at his lips. Perhaps, yet, in the same breath, another truth whispered through me, dangerous, unexpected, impossible to ignore. Part of me wanted him to know me. Not the mask, not the veil, not the lie I had woven into this day. Me, Adrian. And that desire was the most dangerous truth of all. I woke before dawn. Long before the servants began rustling through the outer chambers, long before the palace corridors warmed with footsteps and rehearsed greetings, long before anyone could remind me that I was not actually the bride they were preparing for. I lay still beneath the silk sheets, my heart beating an uncomfortable rhythm against my ribs, the weight of the previous day pressing down like a second skin I could not peel off, and for a moment, I wondered whether I would ever feel like myself again. The truth was beginning to grow too large to hide, stretching against the walls of every lie I had told, every nod I had given, every quiet smile I forced just to keep myself from trembling, and in that quiet hour before sunrise, I could no longer pretend that this wasn't slowly swallowing me. The ceremony rehearsals were set to begin that morning, and as I sat up, brushing my fingers through my hair, I felt the familiar sharp twist of fear, the kind that reminded me that every step I took inside this palace was borrowed time. I had spent the previous night replaying every moment with him. The alpha who had held my hand tighter than he should have, who had looked at me like he was trying to read a language carved beneath my skin, who reacted to my smallest discomfort as though he could feel it in his own bones, and I still couldn't understand why his attention felt so dangerous. It wasn't the intensity that scared me, nor the closeness. It was the way I responded to it, the way my heart betrayed me each time he stood too close, lowering his voice as if he feared the world would hear him wanting something he could not name. I dressed slowly, letting my fingers linger on every fabric, every accessory they insisted I wear, knowing each piece was meant for my sister, knowing each one pulled me deeper into a life that had never been mine. When I stepped into the hall, the morning light poured through the tall windows, catching on the polished floors and illuminating the floating dust in warm gold. Everything felt too beautiful, too intentional, too sacred for the lies wrapped around me, and yet no one looked twice as I approached. The palace staff bowed, offered gentle smiles, and continued with their tasks, unaware that the girl they believed they were serving was miles away in some unknown freedom she had chosen over duty, leaving me to carry what she abandoned. He arrived not long after, the Alpha in soft ceremonial attire, a version of him that felt less guarded, less intimidating, though no less powerful. His eyes found me instantly, the way they always did, as if my presence tugged at something tethered to him, and the smallest breath escaped him, not loud, but audible enough that it pulled my stomach tight. "You're awake early," he murmured, stepping closer, his voice warm, his posture relaxed in a way reserved only for moments he believed were safe. I forced a smile, trying to steady my breathing, but he studied me like he could feel the hesitation lodged beneath my ribs. His hand lifted instinctively, stopping just short of touching my cheek, and for a terrifying second, I thought he would actually do it, brush his fingers against my skin, close that unbearable distance between us. But he paused, his brows pulling together with a confused softness, like he couldn't understand why he wanted to reach for me in the first place. "You look different today," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, and I felt my pulse jump because he wasn't wrong. I was different. Every hour I spent beside him weak and the barriers I had built to remind myself that this was only pretend, that none of this belonged to me, that he belonged to someone who wasn't even here. We walked toward the ceremonial courtyard together, the silence between us stretched thin but comfortable, and for a moment, I let myself imagine, foolishly, selfishly, what my life would look like if the truth weren't a ticking weapon beneath my feet. The palace doors opened ahead of us, revealing a blend of elders, advisors, and attendants all waiting for us to begin the rehearsals. As they arranged the ceremonial items, discussing traditions I barely remembered, the Alpha leaned toward me, his voice low and almost hesitant. "You can tell me if something is wrong," he said, the sincerity in his tone striking me harder than any accusation. "You've seemed distant since yesterday. I don't want you to feel alone in this." Alone? The word echoed too deeply. I tried to answer with calm confidence, but the truth pressed against my throat like a flood waiting for the right crack to burst through. "I'm fine," I whispered, yet the lie tasted bitter. He watched me longer than he should have, his jaw tightening slightly, his eyes searching mine, in a way that made my knees feel unsteady. Because I knew, he didn't believe me, and worse, I sensed a shift in him, a quiet awakening, a question forming that threatened everything I had been struggling so hard to hide. The rehearsal began, and as we stood facing each other, our hands were gently placed together by the attendants, our fingers aligned, our palms warm against each other. His touch should have meant nothing, yet the moment our skin met, I felt my breath falter. His thumb grazed the inside of my hand. Subtle, almost accidental, but the way his eyes flicked upward told me it wasn't accidental at all. There was a moment, brief but intense, where I felt something settle between us, something dangerous and alive, something that had no place in a marriage built on lies. The elders began chanting the symbolic lines meant to bind to souls in promise, and I felt the ground tilt beneath me because this wasn't my promise to make. This wasn't my future. This wasn't my story. And yet I was standing here, holding a man who was beginning to look at me like I was becoming his truth. And all I could think about was how deeply wrong it was to feel this warmth, this closeness, this quiet sense of belonging. When the rehearsal ended, he didn't release my hand immediately. Instead, he looked down at our joined fingers, then at me, something conflicted flickering in his expression. "I don't know why," he said quietly, a weight in his voice that made my chest tighten, "but being near you feels different from what I expected." His eyes lifted to mine, steady and sincere, "And I think you know that too." My heart stumbled. This wasn't supposed to happen. Before I could respond, an advisor approached, bowing respectfully, announcing that preparations for the final ceremony were nearly complete and that we would be expected to attend a meeting with the council at dusk. The Alpha nodded, releasing my hand with hesitation, but his eyes lingered on me for several seconds longer, as though letting go felt like the wrong decision. As the day stretched on, the palace grew busier, the air buzzing with anticipation, but none of it could quiet the storm building inside me. Because for the first time since the charade began, I realized something I had been too afraid to acknowledge. The Alpha was not just growing suspicious. He was beginning to care, not for my sister, for me, the bow behind the veil. And just as that terrifying truth settled inside me, A servant rushed toward the elders with a sealed letter. Their expressions shifted instantly: surprise, confusion, and then urgency. And in the tense silence that followed, my breath caught. Because I knew that seal, I knew that handwriting, and I knew, without needing to be told, that the letter came from the one person whose disappearance had started all of this: my sister. The world seemed to tilt, and before I could steady myself, one of the elders called out for the Alpha and his bride to come forward. My hands went cold. The letter was addressed to him, and the moment he opened it, everything I had been hiding, everything I had been pretending, threatened to crash into the open.